Now, if we pass the current, let the current is flowing in this direction. The current amount of current flows through this is I. The I current is passing through this material, and in this solenoid current is flowing like this, right? Now this also producing magnetic field, and the magnetic field obviously it will be outside the solenoid and also inside the solenoid. How can we find out the magnetic field pattern due to this current carrying solenoid? For this, we assume the whole solenoid with the number of turns, and I consider the first turn, the turn which is at one end, extreme end. If I take this turn from this side, I am taking the first turn. In this, the turn is carrying current in clockwise direction. For me, it is clockwise. The current is flowing clockwise. If you see from the other side, there it will be anti-clockwise. That's all. Now I am observing this solenoid from this side. Here the current is flowing clockwise direction, and we know that in circular coil, if the current is flowing clockwise, then the facing side is south pole. Facing side means the side which is closer to me, that is south, and the far side is north. In a similar manner, every circular part of this solenoid can be considered as a single circular coil. Each turn of the solenoid considered as a circular coil. So every turn produces the magnetic field. The south pole on this side, north pole on the other side. So we consider all the turns are behaving like a small magnet, tiny magnet, in which all the south pole are on the same side, north pole on the other side. So we can assume it is the collection of tiny magnets with the same poles on one side, south pole on one side, all the north pole on the other side. By combining, we get a large magnet with the south pole on this side and north pole on the other side, right? So that means this current carrying solenoid is producing magnetic field with one end south pole, other end north pole. So it also behaving like a long magnet which is placed inside the solenoid along its axis. Can it be imagined? Yes, it can be imagined in such a way that a long magnet is placed inside the solenoid along its axis. And we know that the magnetic field pattern of bar magnet, inside the bar magnet, magnetic field lines passing from south pole to north pole, and outside the magnetic field lines leaving the north pole and enter into south pole. So if we draw the field lines will be like this. Let me draw the lines. Dotted lines are drawn. Another line. Here I am drawing this diagram slowly because this is also very important. This type of question is also asked, that draw the magnetic field pattern due to current carrying solenoid. The field lines should be drawn properly. It should be drawn properly, right? And then at the center, let me draw the line at the center first. That line will be approximately, it is straight, and another line. So these lines, field lines, should be drawn symmetrically. It should be symmetrically. and one more line here. See? And here also one more line. Now I have space to draw another line. Let me draw it. So inside the solenoid, all the lines are parallel to each other. And all the lines are inside the solenoid. All the lines should move from south pole to north pole, and outside it must leave the north pole, and the arrow should be outward. Arrow should be outward, and here it should be inward. The lines, direction of lines should be inward. So this is how the magnetic field pattern is drawn for the current carrying solenoids, right? So if you think about the properties of magnetic field lines, there is one property. The relative closeness of the field lines represents the strength of magnetic fields. If the lines are very closer, the field is stronger. If there is space, large space in between them, in between the lines, then the field is weaker. Here also the same thing can be applied. Now you see, inside the solenoid, all the lines are very closer, so the magnetic field is stronger. And outside the solenoid, if you see, the field lines are far away from each other, and we can say the magnetic field is weaker. And then here we have all the field lines are parallel to each other. If the parallel field lines are in the same direction, then that magnetic field represents uniform magnetic field. You know about the uniform magnetic field. It is represented by equi-spaced parallel lines. So inside the solenoid, all the lines are equi-spaced. So inside the solenoid, uniform magnetic field is developed. Uniform magnetic field is developed. And outside the solenoid, it is non-uniform. Here one thing we can assume, that if the length of solenoid is very, very longer compared to its diameter, that means element of heater. If we take the example of element of heater, its length is very long compared to its diameter. In that case, it also produces magnetic field when current passes through it. In that case, the magnetic field inside the solenoid is very, very, very stronger compared to outside. Therefore, the outside magnetic field, outside the solenoid, the magnetic field can be neglected. But if its length is short, then it cannot be. For the longer solenoid, the outside magnetic field can be neglected, can be assumed small, very small. So there is a magnetic field, it produces a magnetic field inside, and that too also it is uniform magnetic field. And this is one of the very important sources to produce uniform magnetic fields. There are some sources to produce uniform magnetic field, among which this is one of the best source to produce uniform magnetic field, that is current carrying solenoid.